Hello everyone and welcome to the second video in the series Masters Abroad. My name is Kunal and I am making a series of videos to answer some of the common questions students have about pursuing Masters Abroad. If you haven't watched the first video in the series, I would recommend you watch it. It's about some general tips and things to avoid while preparing your application, and I'll put a link to it in the description below. Since the last video, I have received a lot of questions regarding pursuing Masters in HCI. So in this video, I'll be answering some of those, and then I'll also be talking about the MS-HCI program at Georgia Tech. So number one question that I have received is about, hey, can you share some tips about writing statement of purpose? Sure, why not? Okay, so here are my top 5 tips for writing a great statement of purpose. So tip number 1, highlight your journey of discovering HCI. So people come into HCI from diverse backgrounds and everyone who comes into it has a great story. So try to talk about the experiences that led you to discover your interest in HCI in the first place. So for example, I talked about how when I was in my undergrad, I had designed a course management mobile application for students because they were finding it hard to access their course material on their phones. But at that time, I had no idea about HCI. So unaware of it, I started to work as a full stack developer at a healthcare company. And while working there, I again discovered that these medical applications were incredibly complex to use. And so that's when I started to look for ways to make those applications more user friendly, which eventually led me to discover HCI as a field and UX design as a potential career option. And which I decided to pursue full time. So always make sure that you talk about your journey of discovering HCI. Cool. So tip number 2, highlight your passion for HCI. Once you discovered HCI, how did you pursue that interest? It could be by doing a UX design internship. It could be by working as a UX designer in the industry, or just by doing hobby projects in your free time. So for me, I learned things by doing, so I decided to quit my job as a full stack developer and pursue UX design full time. And so I've worked at an incredible design studio that helped me to gain critical skills in UX design. Tip number 3, highlight why you want to do a master's in HCI. So this varies from person to person. Are you interested in exploring emerging technologies like AR, VR? Or are you looking to transition to UX design from your field, and a master's program will help you do that? Or maybe you are looking to pursue your research interests in the field of HCI. So for me, since I had a background in healthcare and UX design, I wanted to merge these two and work on emerging technologies that could improve people's health and access to quality care. And so that was my motivation to apply for MS-HCI program at Georgia Tech. Okay, so tip number 4, highlight which specific aspects of this program interest you. So, it could be working with a few professors, or it could be that this program offers some great courses which nobody else does, or what other things stood out to you in this program for this particular university. So for me, there were some amazing professors doing research in the domain of health tech, and that was one of the reasons to apply for MS-HCI program at Georgia Tech. And so it's important to highlight how masters at a particular university supports you in achieving your long-term or short-term goals. And this is something that the admissions committee is going to look for in your SOP. So make sure to highlight that. So tip number 5, check the requirements for SOP for every university. Now, every university has a different set of requirements for these documents, which they could or could not mention. But some universities ask for a statement of purpose, some ask for a personal statement, some have a very fixed template that they want you to follow, some don't, they give you flexibility of writing your own statement of purpose. And so it's very important to go through these requirements and align your SOP based on these. And you can always have an initial draft and you can split it up and edit it based on the requirements for statement of purpose, personal statement, or any other things that the university is asking for. And as always, don't forget to iterate. I think this is the most important part of this process, because you will not get your statement of purpose right in the first shot. So you gotta iterate, keep iterating on it, and making it better with every single iteration. And just apply the design process to the statement of purpose as well. So the next question that students asked me was, "Hey, what should I put in my portfolio?" So this is a big one, and I can probably make one video just dedicated for portfolio. But for starters, I have two tips for you guys. Tip number one: put relevant projects, and preferably UX design case studies. So this can be from your work experience, your internship experience, college projects, or even hobby projects. And the best way to make an awesome portfolio is to take inspiration from others. And I'll put a link to some amazing portfolios in the description, so that you can have a starting point to start your portfolio. And tip number two is get a web-based portfolio. No static PDFs, no Figma links. A web-based portfolio not only helps you to appear more professional, but also it comes in handy when you will be applying for your internships and jobs. I know it requires a lot of effort initially, but trust me, if you put in that effort beforehand, it will save you a lot of headaches later on. Next question was about resumes. What should I put in my resumes? What should I mention? So in your resume, again, highlight relevant work experience, your skills, your achievements. And if you don't have work experience in UX design, mention your existing work experience and your achievements in them. And don't put a picture in your resume. It's generally not considered a good practice because of ethical concerns. Next question I got was, does the UX design work experience or internship matter? Yes. If you have an internship or work experience, it will definitely strengthen your application. But again, I have seen people coming into the program directly from their bachelor's. So if you have a thesis project or research work in the field of HCI or UX design, that also counts. So the next question I received was, how much GPA is good? So above 3 is, I would say, good. But again, it's not a hard limit. Universities look at the strength of your overall application while considering it for the admission. So even if your GPA is low, don't worry. If you have significant work experience, you have a strong application. Okay, so the next question I received was, can you tell me about different tracks in Georgia Tech's MS-HCI program? What do they mean? How to select the one that is right for you? Cool. So Georgia Tech's MS-HCI program is an interdisciplinary program which is offered by 4 different schools: School of Industrial Design, Interactive Computing, Literature, Media and Communication, and Psychology. And while applying, people generally select a track that aligns best with their background. So for example, if you have an industrial design or architecture background, then select an industrial design track. If you have more technical background, then you might want to go with interactive computing, so on and so forth. But once you get into the program, these tracks don't actually matter and you can switch between them quite easily. Now there are cases when you could select these tracks based on, for example, what you want to do in the future. So for example, if somebody who doesn't have an experience in UX design could come in and say that, hey, I want to pursue UX research, and so that's when a person would go ahead and select a psychology track. But my recommendation is select a track that best aligns with your background, and you can switch them anytime you want once you get into the program. The last question is it useful to put in application early? No, it's not. The admissions committee starts reviewing the applications after the deadline. So take your time, prepare a strong application, and then apply. Always make sure that you submit all the different materials that are required by the admissions office. So these were the top questions that I have received, and if there is anything that I missed, please drop them in the comments. I'll reply to them in the comments below, and stay tuned for my next video where I talk about living in the US, working on campus, funding opportunities, placements, etc. And yes, don't forget to give this video a like if you found it useful. So see you soon.